welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and today's author chat will be really fun for you if you like thrillers and mystery stories, kind of those intense things, or romance. I am talking to Ashley Winstead, and she not only writes thrillers, which is what she's really known for, but now she's also got romance that she's talking about. So her romance book is The Boyfriend Candidate, which is her spring release, and then her highly anticipated thriller Midnight is the Darkest Hour comes out this fall. This was the C2E2 Book Club selection for 2023, so I got to be part of that book club and be part of that conversation and then sit down and talk with her right after that from C2E2 in Chicago. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Ashley Winstead. You got to be the C2E2 Book Club selection. What was that process like, finding out that you were going to get this cool gig?
It's amazing, but it was kind of teased a little bit by my publicist. Like, we're really excited about C2E2. We want to bring you there, and there's something we're really hoping works out. And they just dropped that little teaser. And so I literally laid awake in bed at night being like, I wonder what this could be. And then weeks later, my publicist broke the news that Midnight's Darkest Hour was going to be the official book club pick. And I was like, and I was going to get to meet readers and talk to readers about the book for the first time. And I was both over the moon and very nervous, which is, you know, I'm a writer, I'm an introvert, like I live my life in a writing cave. So that's just like the mix you would expect, I guess.
How did it go from your perspective?
From my perspective, it was amazing. Like, anytime just readers read my book, I feel like I want to hug them and say thank you. It feels like such a gift, and to be in a room full of people in the midst of Comic-Con where there's a lot of really exciting things to like see and look at and participate in, and to have people be in that room to talk about my book. Yeah, that's a high point for me. And it was lovely.
It was a good time. I love the little details that I cannot talk about because spoilers, but oh my God, I want to talk about them.
Can't wait until we can.
Oh, for real. So Midnight is the Darkest Hour is the book that was the book club selection. So tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay, so this is my small town murder mystery book. It opens with a skull being pulled out of Starry Swamp in a small town called Bottom Springs, Louisiana. The skull, no one in town, this small town knows where the skull came from, how it got there, except for the preacher's daughter, Ruth Cornier. She suspects that she is responsible for the skull, along with the help of her estranged best friend, who happens to show up on her doorstep, coincidentally, the day of the press release. And the two of them decide that unless they want to go to prison and then burn in hell, they've got to throw the sheriff off the tracks, right, of like figuring out that they're the ones who are responsible for the skull. And that just starts a whole journey of just a few more crimes to cover the past crime, and lots of revelations and shocking twists about the town and the people in it along the way.
What was your inspiration for this story?
Oh, so much. So, you know, really, I had these different things in my head. One was watching this like Twilight reckoning that I think we're having, or at least the people that I like follow on social media. I feel like there's been a resurgence of attention and affection for Twilight, and I found that to be really interesting. And I think it's because like post Me Too, I'm sorry, my college graduate degree is coming out like I'm thinking too hard about this, but this is just what I do for a living. But so I'm watching this, and I think it's like that our post Me Too brains and perspectives are realizing that when Twilight came out and was such a phenomenon, especially among young women, and the entire world crapped on it. Like, I had this moment in grad school where everyone, all these PhD students were just kind of like using Twilight as a shorthand for a really poorly written book that was like kind of pathetic for the masses, blah, blah, blah. And I will never forget one of my graduate student friends who had been a teacher of elementary school and middle school students was quiet through this conversation. And at one point, she finally stopped and said, you know, say what you want about the book, but when I was a teacher, Twilight was the way that I got my students to read. Like, Twilight is responsible for creating readers and for developing this passion. And I will never forget that because, one, it checked everyone's snobbery in that moment, and two, it just got me thinking about why Twilight was the subject of so much vitriol, you know, so cool to hate on it. And I really deeply suspect that it's because young women loved it so much, and anything that young women love and like that celebrates young female desire is something to be suspicious of and to make fun of and diminish. So like that seed was in my head, and I knew I wanted to write a character who was experiencing that, but like at, you know, much like higher powers and with murder thrown in there, and they're just, yeah.
Always gotta have some murder.
Always, that's yes. So, where I come from, always got to be some murder. And then in terms of like tonal influences, I went back and rewatched True Detective season 1.
That season was so good.
Yes.
The rest of it,
yes.
But season
Agree.
1.
Yes, season 1. And I just soaked up every piece of the atmosphere, because it's set in Louisiana, and also went back to True Blood, actually. And so these like Louisiana-centered like milestones, high points in recent pop culture, I went back and like just let it soak in, because I tonally wanted to be inspired by that. So that's what the vibe I was hoping to go for with the book.
How much fun was it to work in all these Twilight references? Like, did you go reread the books again?
I did, yes, because I felt like people were going to ask me questions, and I need to like know my Twilight, you know, when the book is out. It was so fun, and it just felt like I was like pushing back against, I don't know, it felt like there was something cathartic and releasing in working in the Twilight references, and also defending Twilight in a lot of ways through the book and what happens in the book and the main character's love of Twilight.
This book has a lot of crime and religion.
Yep.
How much research did it take to kind of pull everything together for you?
So much. This is my most heavily researched book. So I would say the amount of tabs I had open on deep dives on my computer on any given day, the books that I checked out, listened to podcasts about like Southern Baptist religion and kind of like horror stories coming out of Southern Baptist, because of course like there's a lot of wonderful like religious folk in the world, as we were talking about earlier, but those don't make the best thriller subjects, so you're gonna gravitate to the outlier stories, you know. So reading about like Pentecostal religion, reading so much, because I have been in person in Louisiana swampland, but they're just it's such a unique climate and environment that I was just like checking out books on Louisiana birds and wildlife, just everything you could possibly imagine, along with your very standard thriller murder mystery writer research about like decomposition of bodies and what would a skull look like this many years post water submersion and all that stuff. all that fun stuff that'll get you in trouble if any law enforcement searches your computer.
Exactly. The searches of writers.
Yeah.
What has been the weirdest thing that you've had to search?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's been a lot of like, what is the quickest way to dissolve a body? Like what chemicals, how, if you were to put this particular poison into your body, like what exact way would you die, and you know, all those sorts of things. And then just looking up really weird crimes from the past, I'd say, are all my weird ones.
Despite this being really fun,
Yeah.
it's a really heavy book.
Yeah.
How do you take care of yourself when you're writing such heavy topics?
Oh, I really love that question. Yeah, I think I'm kind of, this is my shtick now, is like writing these heavy kind of thrillers, like same with The Last Housewife. And I take care of myself by writing romance, lighthearted romance, in between the heavy books, honestly. Some people are mood readers. I'm a mood writer. And my moods tend to bounce between heavy, very introspective, like pulling things out of the darkest depths of my psyche, putting them on the page and analyzing them, which is what I do in my thrillers. And then, you know, joyous romps with lots of shenanigans in my romances. So that's really it, is like give myself that freedom and flexibility to live in the sunshine for half the year.
The ending of
Yeah.
Midnight is Darkest Hour. So I was reading the ending while hosting live YouTube reading sprints, and I did not want to stop. I was like, I hate all of you for making me stop right now.
That's
It's like, I have
amazing.
50 pages left, and I have to talk to you people, and I love you people, but I need to get to this book. It's such an epic ending.
Thank you.
The Vampire Diaries, when they're like, I was feeling epic. I was like, that's encapsulates this. Talk about the process of crafting such an intense,
Yeah.
dramatic ending. Without spoilers.
Without spoilers. I always know the end, except this one, Midnight. As I confessed in our book club talk, I had a different ending in mind, and I was really excited about the ending. I thought it was going to really blow readers' minds, and I was shot down by my publishing professionals who were like, no, you can't do that. So I really struggled with the ending. And the ending that I came to honestly felt like, I know this is so cheesy to say, especially given the subject of this book, but like divine inspiration in a way, because I was, I think I was going for a walk or something, which helps jog my mind, thinking about the ending and thinking about how things should go for our main characters. And it just came to me in like fully wrapped in this vision, and felt so right. Like this moment where it clicked, and that writer creator intuition you have when you're like, this is how it's supposed to be. This is doing what I want it to do. I had that feeling, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it, even though people are going to hate me, you know, and yeah. So
I mean, hate is a strong word, but I have thoughts.
Yeah, yep. And it's probably going to get a lot of flack. Gonna go there.
I want to talk about this so much, but
we'll have to do it post. Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, now that the book is out, now we can talk about it.
Like heavy
and
spoilers.
have feelings.
Yes. I love it.
You also have a book coming out that is very different. The Boyfriend Candidate.
Yes.
So introduce us to, because you just talked about, you write romance as well. Introduce us a little bit to The Boyfriend Candidate.
Yeah, so this is my 2023 romance. I love it so much. I have called it my tender book, and that was actually like part of the title in the beginning, because it is, I think, probably my most like soft, tender-hearted book. But it is about a woman, a librarian named Alexis Stone, who is the younger sister of the main character in my first romance, Fool Me Once, and her older sister is a politician and like brash, take charge, really a woman that Alexis, her entire life, has always admired, but Alexis feels like there's such a gulf between them because she herself is shy, introverted, and she feels like she's never going to live the kind of like important life that her sister is going to lead and live. And this matters to her a lot, especially because her father passed away years before this book, and she always seemed really, really proud of Lee and less so of her. And so she's got it in her head. And so here's a woman who's primed to change her life. She really wants to change her life. She also got dumped by an ex-boyfriend who told her she was mousy in bed. So she figures a quick way to change my life is to have my first one-night stand. So she gets gussied up in a very un-Alexis-like dress, and she goes out to a bar and puts herself in the middle of things to meet someone. And she does. She meets her opposite, but her very studly handsome opposite, and through a series of shenanigans, he turns out to be a gubernatorial candidate for Texas, the Democratic candidate, and once pictures of them go viral, he wants her to fake date him, he and his campaign, so that they can like squash rumors. It's like, where do you stop with the describing the shenanigans? I don't know.
The shenanigans are great.
Yes,
I love shenanigans.
Yes.
So your 2 books this year, Religion and Politics.
Yes, I didn't think about that. I'm just choosing the chillest, least complicated.
Why would you want to write about the things that you're told never to talk about in public?
Yeah, great question. Masochism, I guess, is the answer, probably, the honest answer. I like to go where I shouldn't go. I will say that. And in fact, with my first book that I published, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, I knew that I was onto something when it was physically painful to write my character's inner monologue, because it felt like so close to things I was ashamed of about myself. And that's usually my litmus test for writing. If it hurts, then you're onto something. If you are putting something on the page that's so vulnerable and honest that you're afraid you might get stoned later for putting it on the page, then that's kind of where I want to live. And it may sound like a weird thing to say about writing the romance, but yeah, with politics has traditionally been kind of you don't go there with romance. Well, you don't go there in general, but you especially don't go there with a light, happy romance. And I have, again, masochistically just been determined to just be I'm going to have a light, happy story that's going to be a romantic fantasy and a political fantasy, where it envisions a version of the world that I would personally like to see. And that includes love and politics. Thank you for asking about my romance. Love talking about it.
We have more to talk about with this romance, though.
Yes.
Because you write thrillers, but then you also write romance, and that is one thing that I noticed in The Boyfriend Candidate is the intensity.
Ah, yes.
So how do you keep the intensity in a romance without it feeling like you're blending too much genre?
That's such a smart question, and honestly, I steal from thrillers. In my romance, I tend to write short chapters. I tend to write cliffhanger endings, and I have zero chill as a human being, and so even my lighthearted books are intense. There's a level of intensity where there's going to be a lot of action, there's going to be really big, intense feelings, and it tends to work really well with my thrillers. And I'm still figuring it out in the romance space, to be completely honest. It
worked in this one.
Thank you. But yeah, that same sort of intensity of feeling, really quick, fast pace, and feeling you've got this love story, of course, but there's also going to be a lot of other plots going on, because as a reader, I need at least like 9 things going on to pique and hold my interest. And so you're going to get the political campaign, you're going to get, you know, machinations from the enemies happening in the background, you're going to get the love story, you're going to get the family story dynamics. So I throw the kitchen sink out at the rom-coms the way I try to do with my thrillers too.
What does it happen in your brain when you're writing these 2 different genres and going back and forth? Like, what is that like for you?
Very different things happen in my brain. In like, my husband, God bless him, is always like, is it time to write your next romance? Because you're in thriller writing mode and you scream when I walk in, like when I sneak up on you. You jump a foot in the air. You're like looking around. Like, I fully live in the atmosphere and the tone of the books that I'm writing. So I was in Bottom Springs, Louisiana, in the months that I was writing Midnight, or I was like in the dark and creepy world of the swamp and the church. And when I'm in rom-com writing mode, I'm in like, the sun is shining, like everything's gonna work out. I really feel, you know, like it's just, and that's actually why I started writing romance and like deviated from my thrillers, is because it was 2020, COVID, you know, COVID had just started and I needed to like reshape my brain a little bit. I needed to be thinking about happy endings and living in a comedic world. And so that's what really hooked me and why I like to go bounce back and forth.
It's really interesting, like, because so many authors feel like they're stuck in a box of a genre.
They do.
Did that take a lot of effort on your part to break out of that box and pursue this?
So I cannot tell you how many other authors I have had come up to me, you know, and whisper like after book events or slide into my DMs or something and just say, how did you do this? Like, I want to write in other genres. How I don't feel like I can. I feel like, you know, like I really, there's a lot of expectations that I deliver, you know, not even sometimes just the same genre, but like the same kind of book within the genre. I don't know how I lucked into this other than having a very lenient and willing and supportive agent who was like, you know what? You just unexpectedly out of the blue dropped a rom-com into my inbox, but I'm going to be here for that. And I read it. I liked it. So you know what? We're going to figure out what this career looks like for you. I will say, I think there are more and more writers doing this. Like Jessie Q. Satanto with the...
I just finished Vera Wong's advice for unsolicited advice for murders.
Absolutely, I haven't read that one yet, but you know, her Auntie series I'm obsessed with, and now she's coming out with like a really dark murder mystery thriller later, and so she is just all across the board with genres. And there, I feel my secret suspicion is more writers would do this if they thought they could. And all you need to do is just jam your foot in the door of a genre, convince your people to let you do it, and then run, never look back. And it was an interesting conversation too about whether or not to use a pseudonym. And we ultimately decided that I was just going to be Ashley Winstead across the genres, and hopefully people would follow me across the genres. So it's an ongoing experiment.
Yes. Well, I mean, like even. So Nora Roberts writes thrillers as J.D. Robb, and so many people don't know that's her. Just the way it's perceived when you switch genres, that you have to have a whole personality. So it's really cool to me that you're doing both.
Let's see how it works out.
As someone who reads both and like has ideas for writing both, it's very cool to see someone else doing it. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Come join me, and then we can come up with like a mini.
We'll get Ella Cosimano in here. Yes. We'll just have a whole fun little
Jessie.
Yes. We'll have a grand old time.
Genre fluidity.
So I read the acknowledgments of The Boyfriend Candidate, and that was so emotional reading that. So for those who haven't seen the book yet, because it's not out yet, so this character deals with the loss of her dad, and then that's something you ended up dealing with in real life. What was that like for you to process that grief in that way?
about the time that I was gearing up to do copy edits. My father passed suddenly and unexpectedly at a really young age, and it obviously rocked my world, and I was away from the books that I was writing, including The Boyfriend Candidate, for months, you know, dealing with the loss of my dad and all of the things you have to do for, you know, setting up funerals and like all of that stuff. So I returned back to the book, reread the book for the copy editing process, and it hit me both like a ton of bricks and like a gift that, oh my God, I'd written this book about a girl grappling with the loss of her father. And, you know, Alexis is many years past when her father passed, and I was fresh in the grief. And it was like I had written myself a road out, or a vision of what the future could look like. And I had started processing my grief in a way before the passing of my father, and it was so helpful and in this strange way that I never expected. I think as a writer, you know, you're always working out your things on the page, even when it doesn't seem like you are, or like a character has a lot of you in them. It's all coming from your brain. And so looking back at that book, I realized how much of my own fear over the eventual passing of my parents, I was working out, and like almost trying to self-soothe and heal. And so it was kind of just one of those miraculous coincidences as a writer. And it brought me some peace. And I had the opportunity, you know, to write about that in the acknowledgments. So just a little heaviness at the end of my rom-com, but it is what it is.
So what's next for you?
So many things. I'm always working on a lot of books because that's just how my brain works. So we've got The Boyfriend Candidate coming out in May. Obviously, Midnight is the Darkest Hour comes out in October. And right now I am writing in a new genre that I haven't announced yet. So do you say watch this space? I don't know what the kids are saying. Yep. So there, you'll find out more about that, but I'm really excited. And then also working on my 2024 thriller, which is going to run in a whole different direction, but right now is inspired by armchair detectives, cyber sleuths, and just the kind of explosion of the web sleuth phenomenon. And I am like writing a really complicated, twisty murder mystery of like murders within murders within murders. Yeah, book. So I'm having fun with that.
So because this is literary hype, what books are you hyped about?
Oh my God. Okay. So I am obsessed with A Likeable Woman by May Cobb, like totally and fully obsessed with that book. It is coming out this June, I want to say, and May Cobb is the author of My Summer Darlings and The Hunting Wives, and I just love that she writes East Texas women behaving badly, dabbling in some murder. So anytime I can recommend May Cobb. I am jumping into the other genre, reading Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune right now, because I'm going to be talking to her. This book has sucked me in. It is incredible. It's just as addictive and emotional as her first, Every Summer After. It's fabulous. And I'm going to be talking to her about borrowing from thriller writing, that question you asked me, because I notice her chapters are short, end on cliffhangers, and I'm going to be like, okay, let's talk about this and be transparent about what we're doing, which is just stealing from crime fiction for romance. But yeah, those are my two that I'm like fresh in my mind. I'm obsessed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you. What a blast.
thanks to Ashley for spending time with me at C2E2 and being so focused. Like, I don't know if you noticed, you might have to go back and check this, but there was someone in a furry costume dancing behind us at one point. There was a bird that was walking around behind her and she didn't even notice. She was so focused on the conversation, and I really appreciate that she just took the time to hang out with me and talk about these books, but also was so tuned in on what we were talking about that she didn't notice all of the craziness going on around us. So thanks again to Ashley. Midnight is the Darkest Hour comes out this fall. Boyfriend Candidate is out now. It just released in May, and it is so good. To get both of those books, check the links down below. You're gonna want to get them. They are fantastic. Ashley is wonderful. You can also find links to follow her on social media down below as well. And while you're that side of the screen, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. It really does help out with the YouTube algorithm around here. So thank you so much for joining me for today's author conversation. I'll see you next time.